Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, dear participants. I welcome you to the day 4 of the AICTE ATAL Faculty Development Program on Damage Tolerance, a New Design Strategy. After listening sessions on Introduction to Fracture Mechanics, Corrective Stress Field in 2 sessions, J integral and COD criteria yesterday, and determination of analytical SIF, the stress intensity factors. Now I invite you all to the last session during this FDP by Professor Maiti on mixed mode fracture criteria. So I request now Professor Maiti to take over and start his session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin. Welcome all the participants again for this presentation on mixed mode fracture. We have already looked into the 3 fundamental modes of crack propagation which was introduced by Irwin, and we have studied enough about them. But in such cases, one important assumption is made that the loading that was considered in the 3 modes, they give rise to crack extension along its own plane. And the problems that can be there connected with it that determine the load which will enable or which will actually lead to onset of crack extension. So the crack extension is going to take place in its own plane. And thereby, it was also established that the potential energy in each of these individual modes are related to the stress intensity factor, and it was simply G equal to K square by E, that sort of relationship. Now the question comes up, and obviously, in such problems, the crack extension direction is already known, and therefore the problem could be that find out the load which will trigger the onset of extension. So therefore, unknown is only one. But in general, the problem that we come across in practice is not going to be in these individual modes. They will be always associated with number of modes, and therefore the question comes up, if the component is loaded in mixed mode involving more than one mode, then question comes up. There are few questions. First of all, then in that case the crack is not going to extend in its own plane. So that is one thing which is unknown. The load which is going to lead to unstable extension, that is also unknown. And since in such cases crack is not going to extend in its own plane, what is the direction it is going to take for extension? So that's also an unknown. So for the mixed mode problem, you have the unknown, the direction of crack propagation at the point of onset of extension, the load leading to onset of extension. And there is, another thing, brittle material has the typicality. Once the crack begins to extend, it extends over a long span without any change of conditions. You see that the point is, in such cases, crack takes a course of extension which is almost actually decided by the stress-strain field at the point of onset of extension. And that's why it is actually quite dangerous that you must avoid onset. And if it begins to extend, it is going to be over a long course, and it is almost actually pre-decided by the stress field existing before the extension. So these are actually quite dangerous, and therefore, many times another question which is also going to be asked, all right, we can actually think of 2 unknowns, that load at which it begins to extend, and it is actually direction in it is going to extend. But at the same time, since it is going to extend over a long course, what is that path it is going to take, that path of crack extension. Then in that case, one can take some preventive measure so that crack does not extend along that course. So that is also a question. So therefore, generally, the three points that are generally posed in a mixed mode problem: what is the load at which it begins? It is going to begin to extend, and it is actually the load at which it is going to begin the extension. And third question is that can we really find out the course of crack extension or path of crack extension, path of unstable crack extension, because it is sometimes useful. I think some of the points also I would like to illustrate by giving you an example. First of all, 2 points are quite obvious, that the load at which it is going to extend, that is obviously simple matter. Then the direction of initial crack extension is also actually quite not difficult to appreciate. But if somebody says that, if I know the path of a crack extension, then it is also going to be useful. Then we can take some measure to prevent the extension along that path. So these 3 points are important, and which are going to be our subject of discussion today. All the discussions will actually it will include all these 3 points. And now coming to just show you that what is the mixed mode problem we are talking about. Look at these 3 examples. It's a panel on the left, and the loading direction is vertical, but the crack plane is not actually perpendicular to the loading, so that it could have been in mode 1, but it is at an angle. So in such cases, you see, the crack is subjected to mixed mode loading. That loading you can split in the direction perpendicular to the crack plane and also parallel to the crack plane. So the load perpendicular to the crack plane, that will give rise to mode 1, and the component which is parallel to the crack, that will give rise to mode 2. So it's a mixed mode problem. In this case, it is not that very obvious that crack is going to extend in its own plane, that is along the x-axis. It is not that. So therefore the question is, if it is going to extend in some other direction, what is that direction? Can we predict that direction? Then look at the problem at in the second figure. You see, you have the panel again, the crack is at an angle with the vertical. And then you see, if you have two loads which are acting parallel, in that case, you see the crack, if the material is brittle, it is going to extend along that course, which is shown there. Crack path, it's been shown. So therefore, the question is that what is this crack path? Can we really predict it? Now look at another example. Suppose you have pressure vessel or cylindrical cell, and that cylindrical cell is subjected to axial loading P and the twisting load moment T. So in such cases, if you have a circumferential crack, it is not oriented in the longitudinal or circumferential direction, then in that case also the crack is going to be subjected to mixed mode loading. So I think that last problem, I think just imagine that if you have that T loading, it is going to give rise to pure shear stress. If you develop this cylindrical cell, it will become a rectangular plate, and then in that case, you see, it is going to have shear stresses in the vertical direction and also in the horizontal direction or axial direction. So therefore, that is the type of biax. It is loading with tensile stress and at the same time torsion stress. And the crack is going to be at an angle with the axial direction. So this again actually is going to be a problem of mixed mode. So we are actually now going to look into all these problems, and the questions again would be that if this type of cracks are actually loaded, then what is the load at which it is going to begin, it will start extending. Second, what is the direction of that crack extension, initial direction of crack extension. Third question is, what is the path of crack extension? You see that the path of crack extension, it has some applications. So I would like to also bring to your notice yesterday I was trying to talk about the bar shearing or actually punching blanking. So in the case of punching blanking, you see that the load that comes up on this crack plane, it is not actually purely in shear mode. It will have both actually shear mode and also another mode, which could be actually, it is normal load. So mode 1 and mode 2. So therefore the question is that punch crack tracks from the punch and die edges, how do they propagate and which direction they propagate? They are also related problems, and that's what one can think of that applications. And then other application which is also important, I think you must realize that. See, the question is that we would like to, in that process of shearing of bars or punching, blanking, we are interested in controlling the path of crack propagation so that we get the best quality. Crack propagation directions are continuously controlled so that we can get a crack path which is going to be to our favorable to our condition. So therefore, these are actually problems. So you need some time to tackle the problem of direction of crack propagation and determination of crack path to enable you to exploit the situation for the for your best intentions. Now, even actually when you are trying to think of this rock drilling or tunneling, you want to make tunnel in the rocks. So in those cases also you see that detonators are blasted and then they actually give rise to crack propagation and separation of materials. And that is also something wherein we are interested in trying to control the direction of crack propagation so that it becomes actually favorable to our requirement. So that's what are the applications. So with this introduction, I would like to get started. How do you do that? So first we would like to consider that how do we determine the initial direction of crack propagation and also the load at which it begins to extend. So theory that is available for it, there are a number of theories, and the first theory that was actually given is based on potential energy release rate. This is something, I generally try to give you a situation to feel for, that think of it that you have actually let's say some cut or some injury in your body, and when you are trying to actually flex the muscles, you get the pain. And it is so, or maybe a person has undergone accident and therefore, after that, he certainly had lots of fracture and he is actually crying in pain. And under that conditions, the intention would be to relieve the pain to the maximum. So that's the point. It generally is the requirement. Similarly, material, although we think of it, it is sentient, and then it is, although it is sentient, but then you see that it does have some actually. I call it actually, it has some sense of actually feeling that. So therefore, like human being trying to release the pain to the maximum, a material when it is loaded, it is actually it is subjected to pain. That strain is nothing but pain in the material, and material has the requirement that please relieve the pain to the maximum. That's the point, that you want to release the pain to the maximum, and therefore you see that if there is a crack in the material, then it is certainly trying to see a situation that come up leading to maximum release of strain. So like human being trying to release the maximum pain, here also material, although it is actually insentient, but it does have the requirement that it wants to relieve the pain to the maximum. And therefore, in the material, you see the pain releases to the maximum the moment the potential energy of deformation should be released to the maximum. The potential energy of deformation is trying to lead to the pain and all the miseries. So therefore, if by chance there is a crack, and therefore if the crack can extend, can take a course of extension which will lead to the maximum release of pain, that will be the favorable direction. So therefore this theory was actually propounded, stating that the crack actually propagate in the initial direction, leading to the maximum release of strain energy or potential energy. So that's the theory. It is theory of maximum potential energy release rate. So here, I have done that calculation. How can we actually, you take a crack at an angle to the horizontal, and then, or it is actually perpendicular to the loading direction, and if you change the direction, suppose it is going to extend in the crack plane theta equal to 0, then for that direction there will be some potential energy release rate for the extension of the crack in that direction. And if that theta is actually not parallel to the initial direction, if it goes otherwise, the quantum of energy that gets released for the extension of crack in that direction is going to change. So therefore, in this case, we have plotted in the right hand side, you see that potential energy release rate with angle theta. Theta is actually 0 for crack plane. So if it is actually going in different direction, theta takes different values, and you can plot the energy release rate corresponding to that each of value of theta, so which is shown in the vertical direction. This is the potential energy release rate which is shown on the sketch. It changes with theta, and it has actually for some value of theta it has maximum, and it goes down again and it becomes minimum. It goes on, that dependent on the direction of crack propagation, it will have different potential energy release rate. And according to this theory, which was propounded, that the crack chooses the direction theta c corresponding to maximum potential energy release rate. So if you can plot this variation of the potential energy release rate with theta, then the direction of crack extension is going to be theta c. That's what it is. This is actually energy criterion, and this type of problem, it is not easy to solve by analytical method, and it is very easy for solving considering the finite element method. It is very easy, that in a finite element problem or analysis, you can discretize the whole body into finite elements, and then you can take a direction of crack propagation theta, and corresponding to that, if you would like to calculate the potential energy release rate, it is possible. It's not difficult, it is simple to compute, and therefore, if you go on plotting the variation of energy release rate with angle theta, then it will immediately give you direction of crack propagation. I think this is also widely used. This process of determination of crack direction is widely used. It's not analytical, it is numerical method that is actually made use of to get the variation. So this is the first theory that was done. Now there are a couple of theories or criteria. So potential energy release rate criterion, I hope you have understood. Is that clear to everybody? Is it clear to everybody what the discussion we had immediately before?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's great. So therefore, this is maximum potential energy release rate criteria. Now, the application of this criterion to practice is difficult because calculation of energy release rate is not possible analytically, it is numerically done. But, other people approach to find out the answer to the question, what is the direction of crack extension initially, and what is the load that it is going to extend, it is going to start extending. These questions, people started looking into, can we give the answer from the stress strain field around the crack tip at the point of onset. Because it is bristle material, it obviously the direction of crack extension would be decided by the stress strain distribution in the body at the onset of crack extension. And obviously, we can find out the stress strain distribution around the crack in a mixed mode situation or in a single mode is simple because we know the crack tip stress strain field because of the external loading on the crack. So this was the second strategy people looked into or rather considered and they tried to give the answer. So one of the criteria that was given for direction of crack extension and the possibility of finding out the load corresponding to the onset of extension by considering maximum tangential stress criterion. So what is that maximum tangential stress criterion? We must understand what is the tangential stress in the case of a mixed mode problem. See, if we have a situation of a mixed mode crack, and more so if it is involving mode 1 and mode 2, then we know the stress field around the crack tip. This stress field, it is illustrated there. So if this is the crack, then this sigma theta sigma r and the shear stress tau theta is shown in the sketch or figure 6.3. So therein you see that you take a radial, it is an element in r theta coordinate. So that's the element we are talking about. And therefore the stresses that we are referring to are sigma r, which is the radial stress acting in the radial direction, and tangential stress, which is acting in the tangential direction to the circle, which is shown by dotted line. And then shear stress is actually again shown there. So these are the three stresses. And in fact, from the crack tip solution, if we just try to write the stresses in terms of sigma r, sigma theta, tau theta, so alternatively stresses that we had given to you is sigma x, sigma y, tau xy. So again, you can actually do the Mohr circle transformation and get the stresses in radial, tangential, and shear stress. And this has been done. And obviously, each of the modes will have the field, and then when you have combined mode, it has to be superposed. And after superposing, if you just consider the Mohr circle relationship, it gives rise to the relation that sigma stress is given by the expression 6.1a, sigma theta is given by expression 6.1b, and tau theta 6.1c. So these are actually simple derivation and these are the stresses. Now the criterion that is maximum tangential stress criterion, what is that? So it is stated, the statement of the criterion that in a mixed mode problem, crack begins to extend from the crack tip in a direction corresponding to the direction normal to the tangential stress, and extension begins when the tangential stress reaches a critical value. So in this case, you see the crack is there. So from the crack tip, if you think of the tangential direction, it is shown in this case again. You see you have r direction radial stress, tangential direction, it is tangential stress and shear stress. So it states that at the point of onset of extension of a mixed mode crack is given by it extends in the direction perpendicular to the tangential stress. It is actually taking a direction perpendicular to the tangential stress. And it starts extending when that tangential stress at a finite distance from the crack tip reaches a critical value. So I'll state again that in the case of a mixed mode problem, a crack begins to extend in the direction from the crack tip normal to the tangential stress. And it begins to extend when that tangential stress reaches a critical value at a finite distance from the crack tip. So it is going to take the direction perpendicular to the tangential stress direction, and it begins to extend in that tangential, in the radial direction, which is normal to the tangential direction, when this stress sigma theta at a finite distance from the crack tip reaches a critical value. So therefore, you know that your direction of crack extension is normal to the maximum tangential stress, or in other words, it extends in the radial direction, and it begins when that tangential stress is reaching a critical value at a finite distance from the crack tip. So this is how it was stated, and therefore, you know, it is possible to get the problem solved, and we can think of getting the answer to all the questions. So, in general, you see, we'll consider this again. So, you have your expression for the stresses. If you write, considering the eigenfunction expansion, the sigma r stress, you know, is going to be the first term which is involving SIF, then higher order terms which is consisting of r to the power 0, r to the power half, they are going to be there. So this is the full expansion for stress field in a finite body with a crack. And these functions f1, f2, theta, they are known. Similarly, sigma theta, if you try to say that the expression consists of this SIF first term, or these are called actually singularity term. First term is considered singularity term. It has singularity of order r to the power minus half, and the higher terms, they don't have any singularity. So these are non-singular terms. So you have singular term, non-singular term. And these are the ways we can represent that sigma is actually the singularity term, which is the first term, and then we have the higher order terms. Similarly, sigma theta, we have the singularity term, which is consisting of r to the power minus half, and rest of the non-singular terms are there. And tau theta, exactly the same way it has been represented. First term is singularity term, and then remaining are actually non-singular terms. So, this statement of the theory, maximum tangential criterion, indicates that direction of crack extension corresponds to delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, or and delta 2 sigma theta delta theta square is negative, less than 0. So physically, highest tensile stress on the circle under consensus. So what it means is that, you know, if you take a circle of finite radius from the crack tip, on that circle, if you go on moving from the bottom face of the crack to the top face of the crack, the value of sigma theta is going to change continuously, and the crack is going to choose the direction of propagation from the crack tip to the point where the tangential stress is maximum. So that's what this theory states, and we can actually now consider applying. And of course, concurrently, I have another condition that the extension begins when that maximum tangential stress at that point reaches the critical value theta, sigma theta c critical. So now I'll try to apply this, considering some example. Let's say that sigma theta expression, we'll just take it considering the singularity term. So if I take the first term of the series expansion, just, you know, consider this sigma theta expression is there. So this is the sigma theta expression. So if we consider a circle of small radius, then in that case, you know, these values are significant, these are not significant. So I can forget about the higher order terms, and therefore the stresses are given by the singularity term, or only the first term. So therefore, let us consider a case that we have a situation wherein the stresses are given by the singularity term, then the direction of crack extension, what is it? It is going to be delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0. So therefore, you take the expression of sigma theta, take the derivative with respect to theta, this gives you the expression, and therefore the direction of crack extension or value of theta, which is going to lead to the direction of crack extension, is going to be delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0. So if you take this expression, then in that case, direction of crack extension in a mixed mode problem where both mode 1 and mode 2 stresses are involved, this is the direction. So therefore, this is actually a transcendental equation, and you can solve for theta, and in fact, actually theta can have number of values, and you take the theta, which is going to lead to actually maximum tangential stress, and that tangential stress, when it reaches a critical value, sigma critical, that's what is going to lead to crack extension. So therefore, you see that in this case, then if you have a given problem, if you have been given a problem with K1 and K2 specified, then in that case, to find out the direction of crack extension theta c, simply you solve this equation, this transcendental equation K1 sin theta plus K2 3 cos theta minus 1 equal to 0. And K1, K2 values are known to you, and therefore this can be easily solved, and you can get the direction theta c for possible crack extension. And now the other point is that when it is going to extend, so for that theta c, if you calculate sigma theta, that sigma theta is going to be nothing but 1 by root 2 pi r cos theta c by 2 and k1 cos square theta c by 2 minus 3 by 2 k2 sin theta c. So that should be equal to critical stress sigma c. So this is the final actually position for solving a problem involving mode 1 and mode 2, that if you are given the problem with specified K1 and K2, to find out the direction of crack extension, you solve this equation K1 sin theta plus 3 plus K2 3 cos theta minus 1 equal to 0, this equation to get the value of theta c, and which is easy to obtain. But if you want to say what is the load, so for given external load, you are going to have value of K1 and K2 also as the crack orientation theta changes, the value of stress also changes, and what it says that as the value of the tangential stress in that direction corresponding to the direction theta c reaches a critical value. So when your external loading is such that both K1 and K2 are having the values, and which makes this particular expression maximum, and that is equal to sigma critical, which is the strength of the material, then you can find out the load which leads to triggering of extension. So this is how the whole problem is solved, and therefore now let me illustrate this application by considering an example. So mode 1 crack. Let's say that we have a infinite sheet with an internal crack of size, let's say some dimension, and in this case the mode 1 problem, that means the crack is perpendicular to the loading direction. Then in that case, you see, for mode 1 problem, we know for sure K1 equal to sigma root pi a, and K2 is not there, K2 is 0. So therefore in this case, you know, that equation which leads to this equation 6.5, it gives the value of theta c corresponding to direction of crack extension. It can be easily solved for, and if we solve for, so when K2 is 0, this gives you K1 sin theta equal to 0, and therefore theta can have value 0, it can have value 0, and it can also have value, you know, other values. But then you see that if I take the value for theta equal to 0 also, it gives that sigma theta maximum, and therefore says that the maximum tangential stress in that theta equal to 0 direction is given by this. And this is the stress when it is actually reaching a critical value, which is the load bearing capacity of the material, and that is given by, you know, that K1 C by root 2 pi r. So if you put theta equal to 0, then in that case maximum tangential stress is given by this quantity. And obviously, you know, we know in the case of mode 1 fracture, the SIF is critical K1C, and at a distance R, the stress which is acting perpendicular to the crack plane is K1C by root 2 pi r, and therefore that's the strength of the material. Material can sustain that much of stress in the direction perpendicular to the crack. So I think this I wanted you to have some physical feel for it, because it is I can explain this during this stage. What is that finally has come to? We are trying to take a crack wherein it is loaded in the vertical direction and crack is oriented in the horizontal direction. Then in that case, you know that we are now considering an element which is just actually at a distance r from the crack tip, and at that point the stress sigma theta is acting in the vertical direction. When the crack is horizontal, loading is vertical, then this theta equal to 0 means it is horizontal direction, and at a distance r, the stress which is going to be normal to the crack is nothing but sigma theta. That sigma theta is going to have value depending on the distance r from the crack tip. If it is at a distance, let's say r, then the stress which is acting in the perpendicular direction is going to be K1 by root 2 pi r, and since at the point of onset of crack extension, the value of SIF is K1C, therefore the stress which the material is subjected to at a distance of r is K1C by root 2 pi r. So therefore, when you have a mode 1 crack and the direction of crack extension is in plane, so that is in the crack plane direction, the stress which is acting in the perpendicular direction to the crack plane is nothing but vertical stress, and that vertical stress is going to be given by K1 by root 2 pi r, and that r distance you selected, and once you say that the fracture stress is K1 by root 2 pi r, at the point of onset of mode 1 crack extension, the stress intensity factor is K1C, therefore the stress which is going to exist there is K1C by root 2 pi r, and therefore the stress which really triggers fracture at a distance r from the crack tip is nothing but K1C by root 2 pi r. So this is the material strength. So once you have got this material strength, you know, then in that case, the value of course will change with distance r that you consider for your calculation, and therefore it's going to have different value if you check in the value of r, and that's the capacity, stress capacity of the material at a distance r from the crack tip. So therefore that MTS is the highest tensile stress on the crack under consideration. Crack passes through zone dominated by tensile stress in the tangential direction, and the critical load capacity then is corresponding to the sigma theta equal to theta c, and then you know you can find out the all values that you are interested in.
Sir, how the direction of crack extension occurs corresponding to a plane in which tau r theta is 0?
Yeah, that's a question immediately we are going to look into. And you know that now we are talking of this mode 1 crack application, so therefore you see that maybe actually you keep that question in mind, and I'll give you the answer a little later.
No problem. Thank you.
So we talk about mode 1 crack. Now let's say that I have a mode 2 crack. You see, mode 2 crack, and that mode 2 crack, if it is the mode 2 crack, then in that case, crack is actually in this loading, the crack is loaded by the shear stress. That means if it is a rectangular panel, if you consider the shear stresses acting on its boundary, and the crack is in the horizontal direction, then in that case your K1 is 0, K2 is non-zero. And this theory, since it is actually valid for any combination of mode 1 and mode 2, for pure mode 2, you will find that for pure mode 2, the K2 is non-zero and K1 is 0. So if I go back to that equation of direction of crack extension which is given here, you see that here K2 is non-zero, K1 is 0. So therefore for pure mode 2, the direction of crack extension is going to be available by K2 into 3 cos theta minus 1 equal to 0. So that's the direction theta c, and if I solve for that, if you solve for that, this is something which leads to something perplex. It is going to puzzle you. It is going to really become mind-boggling that this is what is the case. And then in the direction of crack extension is theta c, which is given by this equation, and therefore the direction of crack extension is plus minus cos inverse 1/3, and which is 70.5 degree plus minus 70.5 degree. So what it is really saying, what it is saying, let me take a sketch and then talk. Okay, I think let me just see if I can get another sketch here. Oh no, I think it is not there, but anyway, I think that I will try to manage it. So mode 2 case sketch, I don't think I have here in this. Just let me go for one and see if it is there. Okay, no, I think it is not there. So let me just tell you what it is. Yeah, what it means, that you think of a rectangular plate and the crack is in the horizontal direction, and you have rectangular plate and its crack is somewhere maybe at the center of the plate, and then stresses are acting on its outer boundary. You have shear stress on the right hand side of the plate, and on the left hand side it is actually downward shear stress parallel to the boundary, and at the top face the shear stress is parallel to the horizontal direction from left to right, and in the bottom face it is from right to left. So this is the type of problem. Crack is in the horizontal direction. So if you have such a case, then you see that the direction of crack extension is going to be plus minus 70.5 degree. That means that crack is not going to extend in its own plane. For this mode 2 crack, it is not going to extend in its own plane, but it is going to extend in a direction plus minus 70.5 degree. That means from the crack tip, it will really propagate at an angle of either plus 70.5 degree or minus 70.5 degree. And indeed, it will be possible to establish that the tangential stress is maximum when you have that angle theta equal to minus 70.5 degree. So therefore, the crack is going to extend from the right side in the bottom half of the plate, and it is at an initial angle of 70.5 degree. So you see that it makes the definition and understanding that was propounded by Irwin, that in the pure mode 2 crack is going to extend in its own plane, and the energy release rate is going to be K2 square by E is no longer going to be there. And the assumption that a mode 2 crack under pure mode 2 loading, it is going to extend in its own plane is not going to take place. So I think this point also I want you to just actually note that if you have a pure mode 2 crack in a rectangular plate and loaded in pure mode 2, that initial expectation that the crack will extend in its own plane does not exist. So therefore, this theory and the practical observation led to the situation that crack does not extend in its own plane even in pure mode 2. And the direction of crack extension that was observed experimentally, it was actually possible to be explained by this theory, maximum tangential stress criteria. And that's what it is. So this is the first shock that was there from this theory and applications, that indeed that in the crack does not extend in its own plane in pure mode. So this direction that comes up, it was possible to be explained by considering maximum tangential stress. What it means that when you have a crack, it is loaded, then you think of a circle of finite radius around the crack tip, and if you just try to see the variation of tangential stress on the circumferential of the circumferential direction of this circle, it will propagate in the radial direction from the crack tip corresponding to the maximum of tangential stress. So this stress is trying to open up the crack. It is trying to open up the crack, and that tangential stress is trying to be actually opening up the crack. So the stress which is actually trying to open it up, that whenever that reaches the critical value, crack extends. So therefore the stress crack extension is really driven by the maximum tangential stress on a circle of finite radius from the crack tip. So that's what the physical meaning of it, that for finding out the critical stress required to fracture is nothing but a value which is material property, and if you take the distance of that point finite, it is same for all material and so all problems that you come across, then it has a fixed value. So the by loading, you try to create some stress field in the component, and if you try to think of a circle of finite radius around the crack tip, it is going to be really driven when the maximum tangential stress on that circumference reaches a value which is critical, and that critical stress is a constant value. It does not depend on actually what is the type of load combination that you are applying. So it's a fixed value. So therefore the tolerance capacity of the material is that tangential stress. It has a fixed value for any combination of the stress intensity factor in a mixed mode problem. So therefore the material can tolerate a stress of finite value, and that is the highest value that it can tolerate for the radial distance, and it is actually something can be taken as a material property. So that's the actually maximum tangential stress criterion, and therefore it enables you to actually get the value of that maximum tangential stress is given by K1C by root 2 pi r, and that also in a mixed mode situation, it is nothing but 1 by root 2 pi r cos theta by 2 minus 3 by 2 K2C sin theta. So all that actually is there, and therefore it means, so from this relationship, you see, if you are trying to talk about a mode 1 problem, then the maximum stress is going to be K1C by root 2 pi r, and when you are trying to talk about, let's say, mixed mode problem, and it is pure mode 2, then in that case, you see, the stress is again K1 by root 2 pi r, K1C by root 2 pi r, but the maximum tangential stress for that value is nothing but 0.866 K1C by root 2 pi r. So therefore this links, this one is going to link K1 fracture toughness to K2 fracture toughness. I think this point is little difficult to appreciate, so I would just like to show you this. Yeah. So if you are trying to talk about this expression 6.10, so if you are trying to take that mixed mode problem or other mode 2 problem, purely mode 2 problem, then the tangential stress is maximum is given by 1 by root 2 pi r cos theta by 2 minus 3 by 2 K2C sin theta. So in the mode 2, the toughness that is going to be, or SIF that is going to be existing is K2 and K2C. Therefore, the tangential stress for that K2C at a distance r is nothing but this expression. And obviously, you know that when the material is subjected to pure mode 2, the maximum tangential stress at a distance r is going to be corresponding to angle minus 70.5 degree, and its value is given by this one. And this tangential stress Obviously, when you try to think of the pure mode 1 problem, then the tangential stress which is going to trigger the extension is K1 C by root 2 pi r. So therefore, you see, material is not going to see the difference between mode 1 and mode 2 loading. It will simply see how much of pain is induced in the material, and that magnitude depends on the tangential stress. So in the case of mode 2 problem, the maximum tangential stress value is given by this. When you have the mode 1 problem, the maximum value of tangential stress is K1 C by root 2 pi r. And obviously, material does not see whether it is a mode 1 problem or mode 2 problem. That pain that actually is tolerated is nothing but that permissible tangential stress. They are same in both the cases. And thereby, what you find here, you see, K1C is related to K2C. And this therefore indicates that fracture toughness of the material in mode 1 loading is K1C, and in the case of pure mode 2 loading, toughness is K2C, and that K2C is not independent. It is related to mode 1 fracture toughness. This is what is the relationship. That if K1C is the fracture toughness in mode 1, then the mode 2 fracture toughness is not independent. It is simply 86% of mode 1 fracture toughness. So therefore, see that in a two-dimensional situation, fracture resistance of the material does not require two toughnesses. It requires simply one toughness, and the other value corresponding to critical crack extension in mode 2 is going to be 0.866 times K1C. So, this led to one important development, that for a material, you don't have mode 1 fracture toughness and mode 2 fracture toughness independent. In fact, actually, mode 2 fracture toughness is related to mode 1 fracture toughness. That's the important abstraction of this mixed mode theory, and that really helped to say that whole of two-dimensional crack extension involving mode 1 and mode 2 requires only one fracture toughness, that is K1C. Then in that case, you are in a position to find out the load bearing capacity in all combinations of mode 1 and mode 2. So that's the important outcome of this application of the maximum tangential stress criteria. I think now, let's actually just pause and then try to see how much of understanding has been possible in this part of the presentation. So please, I think you please try to think about now what is that I have talked about and how it is actually going to make meaning for you. So please just think of it a couple of minutes, and then I would like to actually ask you questions, and then let us actually get more clarification on it. So we have actually initially talked about that if it is pure mode 1 problem, then in that case, maximum tangential stress criterion gives you that crack will propagate in its own plane, and the stress that is required for actually onset of crack extension, its value is K1C by root 2 pi r. So once K1C is mode 1 fracture toughness, resistance of material in mode 1 case, and the value of stress which is going to be occurring at a distance r from the crack tip is K1C by root 2 pi r. So corresponding to the onset of crack extension, this stress has a critical value. That is material load bearing capacity. And therefore, if you want to decide your external load, it is simply requiring mode 1 fracture toughness of the material. But suppose it is actually a case of mode 2 fracture, mode 2 loading, where there is no mode 1, then in that case, crack is not going to extend in its own plane. It is going to extend in a direction of the crack plane, and it is at an angle of minus 70.5 degree from the crack plane. And this also says that the stress, if the distance r is recognized as the critical distance for measurement from the crack tip, in the first case, the stress at a distance r from the crack tip is k1 c by root 2 pi r. In the case of mode 2, again the stress which is going to trigger the crack extension, it is in the direction perpendicular to the radial direction corresponding to angle minus 70.5 degree from the crack tip, and the stress which is going to trigger the fracture is again critical stress, and its value is nothing but k1 c by root 2 pi r, or it is k2c 0.866 k2c by root 2 pi r. The values are same because the radial distance is actually same, and therefore the fracture, the tangential stress that is triggering fracture has the same value. So k1c by root 2 pi r is equal to 0.866 k2c, I'm sorry, k2c by root 2 pi r, and which is nothing but 0.866 k1c by root 2 pi r. That's what it is. Does it make sense? Pratim?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Yeah, you actually asked some questions. So let's get back to that question.
Okay. I asked that, if the maximum tangential stress criterion states that the crack extension occurs in the direction corresponding to delta sigma theta by delta theta is equal to 0.
Right.
How does that correspond to tau r theta is equal to 0?
Oh, no. It does not. Okay, that's a good question. You know that, in fact, that's, I think, quite...
In the presence of sigma r, I mean.
No, I understand that. So that actually, I would like to go back to the relation. Yeah, you see that this particular expression was the direction corresponding to maximum of tangential stress. Okay, so that means actually sigma theta is maximum, and you see this direction, it has that expression k1 sin theta plus k2 3 cos theta minus 1, so that is 0, right? So now let's see the expression for the tau r theta. So your crack tip stress field here, if you look into that, when we consider the first term only, then in that case, you see tau r theta is nothing but the portion first term, just deleting the terms involving r to the power 0, r to the power half in the expression 6.1c. So in this relation, you see that when you try to say delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, it gives us the expression within this square bracket that equal to 0. You see, when I write delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, when I don't consider the higher order terms, this gives you an expression which is nothing but this much: cos theta by 2 into k1 sin theta plus k2 into 3 cos theta minus 1 equal to 0. So therefore, you see, in this case, when you try to write delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, it leads to expression cos theta by 2 into k1 sin theta plus k2 3 cos theta minus 1 equal to 0. That means what? Delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, it leads to tau r theta equal to 0. Get this? When you try to write delta sigma theta del theta, just neglecting the terms involving r to the power 0, r to the power half, it gives you expression cos theta by 2 into k1 sin theta plus k2 3 cos theta minus 1 equal to 0. So the direction that you are saying maximum tangential stress, that corresponds to tau r theta equal to 0. You see?
Yeah, I follow that from the equations now.
Yeah.
But then that maximum tangential stress will become a principal stress, isn't it?
Right, because you see that when you are trying to take this sketch, that when you have this particular element is subjected to stresses sigma or sigma theta, no shear stress. So this is a point where the actually stresses sigma theta and sigma are principal stresses.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then then in that case, you see, it also means that the radial direction and tangential direction, they are principal directions. So when shear stress is 0, and then in that case, the two normal stresses involved, they are actually they are nothing but actually principal stresses. For an element, when shear stress is 0, then the other two stresses, which are normal stresses, they are principal stresses.
Yes, corresponding to plus minus 70.5 degrees.
That's right. So therefore, the crack is actually trying to select a direction of propagation which does not have any shear stress.
Yes.
So the direction of crack propagation is selected by the material in such a way, it is so very obvious that it selects a direction theta where for which it is tau theta equal to 0, and for tau theta equal to 0 means both radial and principal stresses are principal stresses.
Yeah, this is exactly in agreement with the Irwin's postulate that the crack propagates in mode 1 in the x direction.
Right, that is for mode 1, actually it is propagating in its own direction. It therefore actually can explain the extension of the mode 1 crack in its own plane. So therefore it is trying to actually again propagate in a principal direction. And in a mixed mode also it will select a direction which is corresponding to the principal direction. You see? It is again, for a mixed mode problem also, tau theta is 0. So it is trying to propagate not in its own plane, but in some other plane.
But then this has actually shook to Irwin's postulates. How was, this was received?
So it is very good. You see, the question is that it is actually in a position to explain the position that is, of course, you are just referring to mode 1, no other cases. He simply actually looked into the case of mode 1 problem, not any other mode. And that's why the question came up that Griffith's theory does not give the answer to the direction of crack propagation.
Yes.
Right? Griffith theory actually was propounded for Griffith crack, and that Griffith crack is the situation where it is oriented in a direction perpendicular to the loading direction. And he didn't make any mistake because crack is going to propagate in its own plane, and therefore it is actually self-similar crack extension. And if you go on hair splitting, again, you see, if you take a mixed mode problem also, where you are subjecting the crack to both normal and shear stresses, it again actually picks up the direction of extension, which is a principal direction. That means again it is going to extend in the direction wherein the tangential stress is a principal stress or it is a principal direction. See, it is also a principal direction.
Yes.
That means it's propagate in a direction where there is no shear stress. So it selects the direction of propagation where there is no shear stress. That means it is again pure mode 1 loading at the perpendicular to the load. See, although you have mixed mode loading, but it actually selects the direction of propagation which is perpendicular to the principal stress direction, or it propagates in the direction of principal stress direction. That's what it is. So it has now helped us in finding out one important point, that what is the load, external load to be applied if you have a mode 2 problem, how much of external load is going to trigger crack extension, that can be determined. And therefore you see that if in this case it is already, we have solved this problem. And in that situation, mode 2 stress intensity factor, which is actually the stress intensity factor existing, and it relates to the situation, or it gives rise to the situation that K2C is not independent. It is again actually related to K1C. And it is obvious, material does not, suppose the test is being done by Professor Sachin Nayak, another test is done by the other, let's say, colleague in the audience, and therefore, it means that the result obtained by Professor Nayak and the other gentleman will not be different. They are actually having link, and that link is because of this thing that material withstanding capacity of stress is same. Material does not try to see that the test is done by A or test is done by B. It simply looks into or it is actually simply the situation that the loading must actually create a degree of pain is the same at a finite distance from the crack tip in in the material, and that pain is of constant value, and accordingly the external load will be actually fixed or get decided, and we'll have the situation that it's a constant stress which is trying to trigger the fracture. So that's what it is. So this, finally will enable you to do something which is also useful for designers. You know that we have done the failure locus in the case of maximum principal stress, maximum shear stress, or maximum strain energy density, and also maximum volumetric and strain energy and distortion energy density. In classical fracture theories, you have all these criteria, and then you have been able to find out the failure locus. That if you take the maximum principal stress, and if you try to take all the combinations of stresses in the two directions, orthogonal directions, sigma x and sigma y, you will get a locus. That means for all combination of stress in the x direction, stress in the y direction, which will trigger fracture by the maximum tangential stress reaching a critical value, or maximum principal stress reaching a critical value. If you remember, it's a square. If you draw the stress diagram with sigma 1 stress direction, sigma 2 stress direction, Rankine theory, maximum principal stress theory will give you a failure locus, which is actually a square, and this square is having actually from the origin its dimension in the x direction is something, let's say it is sigma 1, then in the y direction it is also going to be sigma 1, and it's going to be a square. And the stress, if you have varieties of combination of stresses sigma 1 and sigma 2, which are the stresses going to lead to fracture, it will come outside the locus. So all the stresses outside that square is going to lead to failure, and the stresses which are within the square, it is not going to lead to failure or safe combination of stresses. It gives you locus, failure locus. A designer can just see the value of stresses existing in the component, and from that diagram you can immediately decide whether it is safe situation or unsafe situation. This failure locus is drawn generally in the theory, considering the theories of failure. And here also, in the fracture mechanics, now the question is, if it is a combined mode problem, then you would like to ask the question, can I find out all the combinations of mode 1 and mode 2 stress intensity factor that will actually make that component safe or unsafe? So, and this is by using that maximum tangential stress criterion of this tangential stress criterion is actually obtained by, in this or shown in this diagram. So we plot a curve where K1 stress and K2 stresses are plotted in the x and y direction, and if we try to take the values which makes the tangential stress constant, it gives a locus here, which is shown by this elliptical geometry, and it says that K1C is the mode 1 fracture toughness, and K2 the failure, corresponding failure is 0.86 is K1C, and this diagram actually is giving you the failure locus, all the combinations of K1 and K2 which are lying outside this curve, they are actually unsafe, and all the combinations which are inside this curve is safe. So therefore a designer can immediately decide that given the K1 and K2 value, he can immediately look into this diagram and communicate whether it is safe or unsafe. So this is very useful in design, and it is obtained by considering this combined mode situation. Okay, so therefore that's something actually we have given considering the maximum tangential stress theory. And the last point that we should like to consider associated with this criterion, the last point, can we find out the crack path once it begins to extend? What is that path it is going to take? So I think, it is quite, again, this is not difficult to actually say that in the case of brittle material, once it begins to extend, it actually decided by the stress strain field that existed in the body at the point of onset of extension. So if I know the stress field at the point of onset of extension in the presence of mode 1 and mode 2, then you see that I can consider circles of different radii from the crack tip, and for that combination of K1 and K2, I can draw different circles, and on each of these circles I can find out the location where the tangential stress is maximum. So if we have the circles of different radii and then try to find out the maximum tangential stress location on each of these circles. So if you join the points which are corresponding to the maximum tangential stress, that gives you a path which is shown there, and with that arrow at the right end. So this path, in fact, if the material failure is dictated by the maximum tangential stress, as it begins to extend, it is going to take the path corresponding to this maximum tangential stress location. So therefore, this is the crack path. So crack is really going to take the path locus of the maximum tangential stress. So therefore, this is the path that crack is going to take immediately after the extension. So this is how one can find out the crack path also. So this is how the crack path can be decided, and it is easy. And in fact, to solve this problem of this type or crack path, one has to really apply the finite element type of method, because otherwise it's not easy to calculate the stresses at on different radii, circles of different radii, and it is easy for finding out the stresses on the circles of different radii and plot the location of maximum tangential stress and then get the crack path. So this is actually something which has been done. It has been abundantly applied, and it has given results, and again corresponded with the experimental results that were obtained. So this is the crack path determination associated with the mixed mode crack problem. Now there is something, actually we have to think of some other development which is very important, and then in fact that this maximum tangential stress criterion, it has some questions, some actually ambiguities, and that ambiguity we have to look into. What is that? This is again related to the expansion for the stresses. So we'll have to go there. Stresses. Look at this. This is the expression. These are the expressions for the tangential stress, radial stress, and shear stress. So in a mixed mode problem involving mode 1 and mode 2, the expression for radial stress, tangential stress, and shear stress is given by these expressions. Now, I said that maximum tangential stress criterion, when you try to consider that the crack tip stress field is mostly given by the SIF first term, singularity terms involving K1 and K2, then we ignore the terms involving R to the power 1 F1 theta and so on. So that was the initial starting point, but and that also helped us that the crack extension direction corresponding to maximum tangential stress is corresponding to the principal stress direction, and therefore the shear stress is 0 in the direction of crack propagation. So crack chooses a direction of maximum principal stress corresponding to principal stress direction. It's a principal stress. But I think that some of you who are little quick in understanding, see that when I say delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, considering only the first term in the expansion 6.1b and 6.1c, you are not considering higher order terms, that g1 theta, g2 theta, and here h1 theta, h2 theta. So you are just restricting to the first term. And that also had given rise to the condition that delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0. That also gave the condition that this cos theta by 2, k1 sin theta, k2 3 cos theta minus 1 equal to 0. So therefore the direction of maximum tangential stress correspond to shear stress equal to 0. That was there. But actual expansion is not actually in a finite body. The actual expansion is not just going to be given by this first term expansion. It is going to have higher order terms, eigen terms of higher order, and therefore this thing, when you try to say delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, it does not give rise to that. That is also indicative of tau theta equal to 0, because the derivative of this function g1 theta, g2 theta, it does not give you terms like h1 theta, h2 theta equal to that this the derivative of this is directly giving you h1 theta, derivative of this is going to give you directly h2 theta. That means derivative of g1 theta with respect to theta, it does not immediately give you h1 theta, and a g2 theta derivative with respect to theta is not equal to h2 theta. So therefore sigma theta del theta equal to 0 does not immediately mean that this second expression which is given by 6.1c is equal to 0. So therefore the direction of maximum principal stress does not correspond to shear stress equal to 0. So therefore you see that you have a case, I think, hope you people are getting it, this expression which are there in 6.1b and 6.1c, if I say delta sigma theta del theta, it simply also means that if that delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0, it means that not only the derivative of the first term but also theta derivative of the higher order terms, they are also going to be such that for they should be 0, that derivative should be 0 when we actually look into this case. But obviously the derivative of this with theta is not equal to h1 theta, derivative of g2 with respect to theta is not h2 theta, and therefore del sigma theta del theta equal to 0 does not immediately mean that it is going to give you tau theta equal to 0. So when you take the general stress field involving even higher order terms, it does not ensure that the direction of principal stress is actually a principal direction, because these are not going to be 0 corresponding to that direction. Shear stress will exist, it will be non-zero, and when you have that direction with both normal stress sigma theta and shear stress tau theta non-zero, it is not a principal direction. So therefore that the answer that you get considering only the singularity term is going to give you some situation. When you consider non-singularity term, the situation is not the same. So this tangential stress criterion was considered to be also principal stress criterion. That was the understanding initially, but when the actual expansion for stress field around the crack is given by all the terms of the stress expansion, it does not indicate that the tangential stress direction is not the actually, it is not always, it is a principal stress. It is not principal stress, it is something which will also have shear stress. So therefore the question that the people can ask the question now, then what is the direction of crack extension as per tangential stress criterion? Initially, that it was stated that the crack extension as per the tangential stress criteria is a principal stress. That answer was arrived at by considering the expansion for the stress field around the crack tip given by simply the first term expansion. But with the exact solution of the crack tip stress field, it's not true. So therefore there can be a situation is that on that circle where we are saying that maximum tangential stress, that radial direction corresponding to the maximum tangential stress in the direction of crack extension, it was okay, it was a principal stress direction, but when you take the exact solution, it is not. So therefore the people started raising the question, then therefore what does it mean? That obviously that the direction of crack extension, it is not a principal stress direction, it could be different. Alternatively, one can say that place where the tangential stress is maximum, their shear stress is not equal to 0. So there must be another location where the tangential stress has high value, but then it is not actually that shear stress is actually at that point equal to 0. See? So initially, tangential stress criterion stated that crack extends in the radial direction, where the tangential stress is a principal stress, and that was all right. But then, when it was further looked into, it was found that you see that there the shear stress is equal to zero, just a chance, but then it is not always. You can have a location where the tangential stress has quite high value, but the shear stress is zero. And in that case, that tangential stress is the principal stress. I think I just let me actually state this with some sketch so that you appreciate. You see that what was initially stated in this figure, please concentrate on this figure. On this figure, you see, what we said is that when you try to take this element at an angle theta, you can have two situations. You can have this element at an angle theta, wherein you can get this tangential stress sigma theta, CS, and radial stress sigma r, and you can have tau r theta equal to 0. So one location wherein both sigma theta and sigma r are principal stresses, because it is a location corresponding to shear stress 0. But you can have also another location very close to it, whether sometimes it could be below or on the other side, for which the tangential stress is not actually the maximum. It is less than that highest value, and it corresponds to a situation wherein you see that this is actually tau r theta is equal to 0. In one case where this radial stress and tangential stress are acting tau r theta equal to 0, that is a point wherein sigma theta is very high, but sigma r and sigma are both principal stresses. On the other hand, you can have a point very close to this location wherein the tangential stress is actually a principal stress, but it is not the highest tangential stress, and the shear stress is 0. So therefore the question is, you have a situation where the tangential stress high, but the shear stress is not 0. You have another location where the tangential stress is little low, but then they are principal stresses. So the question is, do the cracks select which direction crack select? Does it select the point where shear stress is non-zero, or it is selecting the direction corresponding to shear stress equal to 0? So that's the question. So in fact, actually, it is very interesting that when shear stress is equal to 0, then both radial and tangential stresses are principal stresses. And another case where the tangential stress is higher than that value of tangential stress in the earlier location, but the shear stress is non-zero. So does the crack select the direction corresponding to the point where shear stress is 0, or the location where shear stress is non-zero and tangential stress has been higher value? In fact, this point was brought out, and finally it really led to confusing situation, but with experiment it was finally actually settled that crack selects the direction corresponding to tau r theta equal to 0. So it really selects the direction where tangential stress is not the highest value, less than the highest value, but it is a principal stress. So material, it is having a tendency to select the direction of principal stress equal to 0, and tangential stress is higher, but not the highest. So that's what it is. That actually was given the name maximum tangential principal stress criteria. In the case where tau equal to 0, it is maximum tangential principal stress is not highest. Only the location where tau equal to 0, tangential stress is 0, the stresses are principal stress, but the tangential stress is not the highest, and therefore there was actually two locations possible for the crack extension, and it was finally resolved by experiment that really it passes through the point where the tangential stress is high, but it is a principal stress. That's how it is. So therefore these two criteria was there, and therefore the crack path was also determined considering this tangential principal stress criterion, and the results were more actually corresponding to that tangential principal stress criterion. So that was actually another theory which came into being, and it has been applied, and its application was facilitated by the finite element analysis. So therefore, that yeah, this is the sketch which I wanted to tell you, that if you try to take circle of radius, finite radius, then on that circle of finite radius, if you take the angle sigma theta, or I'm theta sigma 1, beg pardon, theta c1, if you take that direction, you see that is the point P, wherein your delta sigma theta del theta equal to 0. But this delta sigma theta del theta equal to sigma theta is maximum on this circle, but then this is not the location where tau r theta equal to 0. So therefore, this is actually one location, and then another location which is close to it, not very far off, wherein point Q, wherein you see both tangential stress and radial stresses, they are principal stresses, but this is a location where tau r theta equal to 0. So you have in this case location where tangential stress is not principal stress. This is the location where tangential stress is a principal stress, and crack selects the direction corresponding to that tau r theta equal to 0. In fact, this is the direction corresponding to his their purely opening mode of loading. You know that this stress is acting and this is parallel to the crack, and here actually this stress is highest principal stress, and it is trying to open the crack where there is no mode 2 deformation. If tau r theta equal to 0, crack extending in this direction, it does not have any mode 2, but whereas crack extending in this direction, it would have both mode 1 and mode 2. So therefore, crack material chooses a direction of extension which is corresponding to pure mode 1. So finally, the abstraction is that crack selects the direction of extension corresponding to pure mode 1, whereas if it is going to extend in this direction, it will have both mode 1 and mode 2. And unfortunately, material is actually quite understanding type, and it does select the direction where the loading is purely mode 1. So that's how it is. So this is what the other criterion. And then,
sir,
yeah.
The value of theta C2 is calculated by setting tau r theta is equal to 0 in
Correct.
the presence of higher order terms, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I wanted to.
No, that is correct. It takes the expansion, full expansion of the stresses. Full expansion of the stresses. That means it involves terms consisting of r to the power minus half, r to the power 0, r to the power plus half, and so on. So that's what actually, in this case, it is taking care of all the contributions, whereas for determining the location P, it is simply actually that we have considered the higher order terms are not there. But if you consider the higher order terms also, this will give you two different locations. One location where shear stress is not there, and another location where there is shear stress plus tangential stress. And in fact, the tangential stress could be actually higher at this location, but here shear stress is there. So therefore, material does not select the direction where it is being tortured by opening and mode 2 loading. You see, material is selecting the direction where it is simply tortured by mode 1 loading, pure mode 1 loading. That extension in the direction corresponding to principal stress, it does not get tortured by mode 2 loading. You see, that's what it is. It is pure mode 1. It is just pure opening. That crack faces are not subjected to when tau r theta equal to 0. It means that when crack is opening up, it does open up, just open up, but it does not get actually slided. One face does not get sliding over the other. Whereas if it is propagating in this direction, it will be opened up by sigma theta, plus at the same time it is going to be sliding because of tau r theta not 0. Is that clear, Sachin?
Yes, sir. One more thing I wanted to know.
Yeah, in fact, just 1 minute. If I wanted to show my, this situation by hand movement, I hope you may not be able to see it. That's the point. I have to be just actually not showing that situation. If it is, if I were present before you, I would have shown you what it means. Anyway, please go ahead.
Sir, I just wanted to know that if I include the higher order terms in the equation 6.2b, let us say,
Yeah.
for finding out the value of sigma theta, and then if I apply the maxima minima condition to it, mathematical condition, I think it will lead us to some value of theta c, which will be different than theta c1 and theta c2 also.
Please repeat that. I didn't get the clarity. Please go ahead.
Yeah, if I, supposing, including the higher order terms, if I have the first partial derivative of sigma theta with respect to theta, it may give me a direction of maximum principal sigma theta, maximum value of sigma theta corresponding to a plane different than theta c1 and theta c2.
No, that's what it is. You see that when you are trying to talk about that direction corresponding to delta sigma theta, del theta equal to 0, it is going to actually take all the terms. You see, it is going to take all the terms, and that will give you some answer. And when you try to say the solution corresponding to tau theta equal to 0, see tau theta equal to 0, that expression is different. The answer and direction will be something wherein it is going to, obviously, in both the cases when tau theta is non-zero, tau theta equal to 0, both the cases you are going to get some answer for theta, single direction theta. Yes. Both the cases. So the question is, when you are taking actually theta corresponding to the expansion where tau theta equal to 0, it gives you the direction corresponding to sigma theta, a principal stress.
Yes.
When you try, full expression when you take, that's valid. So when you take solution for tau theta equal to 0, it gives you an answer which is corresponding to tau theta equal to 0. And when you try to take the case when delta sigma theta derivative with respect to theta equal to 0, it gives you another answer, and it does not correspond or it does not tally with the answer the earlier that we have obtained.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
That part.
Okay. Sir, how much deviation in the two estimates has been reported?
It's a great thing. It's a good question that you have asked. You see, initially, it was around 1970s that people were trying to do experiment with angle crack, that a rectangular panel with some crack which is at an angle with the vertical direction, and loading is in the vertical direction. People try to take the angle where beta, and that angle is varying from 90 degree, that means from vertical direction crack is in the 90 degree orientation, it is horizontal, and then reducing that angle from 90 degree to, let's say, about 75 degree. It was never actually taken, that angle was taken within the range 0 to 15 degree. Am I clear to you? What I said, it is rectangular panel and it's a crack which is oriented at angle beta with the vertical direction, and my loading is in the vertical direction, trying to open it up. And the people did experiment like considering beta angle varying from 90 degree to about 15 degree. It was actually more than 15 degree with the vertical. Okay?
More than 50.
15, not 50.
15.
Yeah, so that 15 degree with the vertical direction. So in that case, that the difference in the results based on these two theories were not that much. It was not, it could have gone up to about, let's say, 1 to 5 degrees. And in actually, people will not see much of a difference. They would say that both are the same. But when people started doing experiment where the beta angle is actually less than 15 degree, then the actually music started. That actual observation of crack extension direction was quite different. The problem actually showed the difference. And therefore, then they actually realized that this maximum tangential stress as it is understood is not correct. Then in that case, maximum tangential principal stress criterion was considered and the observed angle was actually coming to closeness.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. And I just wanted to tell you another thing also. This became actually much more pronounced when you think of it that you are going to have a rectangular specimen. It is actually held at the one end by actually clamp, and you have a crack just after the clamp in the vertical direction, and that try to actually put a load in the direction perpendicular to the beam axis. And if you do that, and if you try to actually do the loading, the crack, one would think that crack will propagate in the direction vertical. Again, let me actually come to that point again. What I'm saying, think of a rectangular specimen, and you have a clamp vice, and then put that specimen in the clamp, and then you take a crack or you introduce a crack immediately after the clamp in the vertical direction. So it's a rectangular specimen oriented vertically, and it is clamped at one end, and after the clamp you just introduce a vertical crack, and therefore the specimen is actually like a cantilever with a crab in the vertical direction after the clamp end, and then you try to put a load like actually cantilever beam with a concentrated load. So if you put that, you generally it's a shearing situation. So one would expect as you put the load that crack should really go in the vertical direction, isn't it? It's a pure mode to loading.
Yes.
But unfortunately, that the theory predicted based on MTS was actually something which was not correct. And then when it was actually MTPS was applied and the result was corresponded, it was actually coming more close. So this is it. So therefore,
Okay. Sir, what was the location of the load in this case?
So that load can be actually, it is just at the, let's say, free end.
Will it not actually cause mode 1 also to trigger?
Yeah, it is mode 1 is there, but then you see the question is material is going to certainly feel the pain due to mode 1 and mode 2, and it will give the answer accordingly.
Yes, yes.
So it becomes actually a situation which is new, you see, which is totally new, and then the answer that was obtained, that is that also brought out the difference between MTS and MTPS.
Yeah, okay.
So new situations when they were actually faced, the difference between the two criteria became much more evident, and it certainly gave importance to the theory based on the maximum tangential principal stress.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this case of a cantilever type of rectangular specimen, the difference was substantial. What was the difference in the values of theta estimated?
Oh no, it is actually, it had gone much higher. It could have gone actually there to show the difference. Depending on the radial distance that you take, it can go up to 15 degrees.
1.5.
Not 5, 1.5.
1.5. Yeah, it's a substantial value.
Yeah, you see that in the case of that mixed mode problem in the sort of rectangular parallel with the inclined load, the difference was not seen to be more than about 15 degrees. But when you come to this sort of problem, difference can be more than 15 degrees. So therefore, that certainly is substantial. And in fact, actually, I don't think that I will have the time to talk about the ACD criterion. And that ACD criterion is the criterion when it was actually applied to this cantilever beam problem or crack problem. It was actually extremely high. I mean, it gave an answer which is just actually unthinkable. So therefore, the difference became actually extremely of high order. So depending on the problem, the difference will come and it will show which is actually more appropriate criteria. So that's how it is. Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, these results are there in the journals. So therefore, if somebody is interested, they can look into the journals and see the varieties of problems they have solved and shown the difference that comes up because of application of the different criteria. Okay, friends, I think that the today's discussion I would like to now summarize what I did, and probably I couldn't really feel that the concepts have gone clearly to you, because this required some more writing of expression and showing you physically some cases so that you could have appreciated. So that was not possible, but then still, I have tried to, what I have tried to present to you today is the following. First thing that we wanted to say, that the mixed mode crack problem, crack problems, general crack problems, where the loading is not going to be in an individual mode, then the questions are asked, or generally questions that an analyst would face are that he has to give the answer: how do you determine the direction of crack extension? How do you determine the load at which it is going to start extending? And third is that how do you find out the path of crack extension? Because brittle material, they lead to catastrophic fracture immediately upon starting, and it can be actually in design, it can be handled. You can really stiffen the specimen along the crack path, knowing the direction of crack path. So therefore, these questions have to be answered. So we started talking about the first two cases. First of all, the direction of initial crack propagation and the load at which it begins to extend. We tried to actually talk about the maximum potential energy release rate criterion, first one, which are first propounded. Then the tangential stress criterion, which is the second to come, and we have actually shown some applications. And then it was brought out that in reality, material actually is not, failure is not governed, or onset of failure is not governed by tangential stress reaching a maximum value. It is really the principal maximum tangential principal stress reaching a critical value. So it is not only tangential stress, it should be a principal stress reaching a critical value. So that's what. First one is maximum potential energy release rate criterion. That's no complication. But when we try to talk about stress-based criterion, then in that case, just a minute.
Sir, please start your charger of the mobile.
I did. That notice has gone off. So the maximum tangential stress criterion was initially propounded, and all the consideration that has gone into considering the expansion of stresses in terms of the singularity term, first term. But when it was actually, when the full expansion of the stresses were taken, then situation became different, and then it was coming to be clear that you could have a situation where the tangential stress need not be a maximum tangential stress, but if it is a principal stress, then also it is going to actually be useful for direction of crack extension and the determination of the load corresponding to fracture, and that was actually stated as maximum principal stress criteria, tangential principal stress criteria. First one, where the tangential stress is maximum criterion, that is tangential MTS criterion, maximum tangential stress criterion. But later on, it was actually shown that it is not maximum tangential stress criterion, but it is maximum tangential principal stress criterion. And that did actually have more suitability and applicability to more cases, and that became the actual criterion which stood for the test of varieties of problems, and that's how it became the stronger criteria. So that's how we have really discussed about the three criteria, and in fact, for application, you should be really, you will be better off if you can think of applying the maximum tangential principal stress criteria. So that's how it is. And in fact, there are many more criteria which have been propounded, and the other criteria that criterion that you can read is strain energy density criterion. So it's a energy density based criterion, and that has also some suitability and has been shown to be suitable, but then that has also some pitfalls. It does not work in some situations. That's out. So therefore, that's what is actually maximum mixed mode fracture criteria that we had intended to talk about. And I'm sorry that probably the presentation today was quite discerning in the sense that it does require consideration of the understanding of the uh, illustration of the stresses around the crack tip very thoroughly, and one must appreciate what is actually tangential stress, what is radial stress, and what is radial tangential stress, and I'm sorry, tangential stress, and also maximum principal tangential stress or principal stress in the tangential direction that should be understood. And please remember that the material that real materials, they are certainly going to be actually filling, considering the case of maximum permissible stress, and that permissible stress could be a tangential stress, but it could be a principal stress. It could be the no. If it is not a principal stress, then that's not going to work. It should be a principal stress, and it does have some physical meaning that when the crack is propagating in the principal direction, then it does ensure that it is a single mode crack problem. Instantaneous crack tip is loaded by single mode. It is just simply mode 1. You see, that crack direction is such that it selects the direction where the fracture is triggered by mode 1 load, not by mode 2 load. So that is the point, that it is a principal stress, tangential stress is maximum, and it is a principal stress. That's all. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. And in fact, we have also shown you that with this consideration of the mixed mode criterion, we find that there is in a two-dimensional problem where mode 1 and mode 2 loading are existing, you can draw a diagram which is involving mode 1 stress intensity factor and mode 2 stress intensity factor axis, and you can find out from the criterion the combination of K1 and K2 that can be existing, or that can actually lead to triggering of fracture, and that type of diagram is called failure locus, and they are useful in design because then designer can see quickly his problem and then find out what are the values of K1 and K2, and from that failure locus one can immediately decide whether it is a safe situation or unsafe situation. So the utility of failure locus is important for practical application. So that's all. And if there are some questions, we have about 10 minutes to go for. Please come back. You can actually now raise questions. We can take them up.
Participants, please ask your questions if you have any.
Hello, sir. I am Sanjay Rukhande. Actually, during presentation, I had some questions, but then, in the further presentation, you already cleared that. Like we took this higher order, we neglected this higher order terms in this first criteria, I think.
Tangential stress criteria.
Yes. But then, if we consider that, then in tangential principal stress criteria, I think we can get better prediction of the path, crack path.
That's right. You get the better result. You get the more accurate results.
Yes. But then, sir, again, this higher order terms, they are the function of theta. So where we could get this expression for this?
They are there in the mechanics book. They actually give these terms. Some of the terms are given.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you. See that we did the eigenfunction expansion, no?
Yes.
So
Williams eigenfunction. Yeah.
You see there. You see that we took the case where the first eigenvalue we took, and then we got the answer. involving non-singular terms and
Yeah.
no involvement of non-singular terms. But if you are interested in getting the higher order terms, then your eigenvalue we have taken 1, but to take the second eigenvalue, third eigenvalue, and immediately you'll give those functions which are theta functions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Got it, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Sir, this equation 6.1
Yeah,
that you have given, you said that those can be obtained by transformation of the stresses.
yeah.
My question is, how is that K2 come into picture while doing this?
Okay. You see that when you write the expansion of stresses, you can write the singularity term wherein 1 by root r term is there. Then you have next term which is r to the power 0 and there is function of g1 theta. So that once you take the eigenvalue, eigen function expansion approach, this value of g1 theta you will get. And exactly the same manner, if you try to actually consider the h1 theta, again you see that is involved in the expansion of tau r theta. So that conversion of the Mohr circle transformation of the term g1 theta, that will give you actually h1 theta. That's what.
Okay, so this transformation is required to be done with higher order terms included in it.
Yeah, it has got, but that means actually see that when you try to take the first eigenvalue, you get the expression for g1 theta, h1 theta. You take the second eigenvalue, it will give you term involving r to the power plus half, and at the same time function g2 theta and h2 theta.
Yeah.
So that
And
that eigenfunction expansion approach, please just actually look into after finishing the day's presentation. You just see, and then that will actually give you clarity.
Okay. No, I was just thinking, can it be done from first principle by applying one of the approaches that we used for finding out crack tip stress field?
No chance. Stress field, first principle, it's not possible. You see, stresses, if you want to transform, you have to go by Mohr circle. Because, it's not a tensor, I beg your pardon, it's not a vector.
It's a tensor, yeah.
It's a tensor. So therefore the transformation is different. And the transformation of a vector and a tensor, they are different.
Yes. Okay.
Vector is what you call that, it is actually first degree, what you call
First rank tensor.
First rank tensor. Whereas stress is a second rank tensor. That's what it is.
Yes. Sir. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions, participants? This is last session by Professor Maiti, so we'll not be able to meet him again today or tomorrow. So if you want to ask any other thing, please.
My suggestion would be that participants, please, it is not always possible to really get all the things clear from this sort of lecture. If you want to learn and you want to have more grip on these, please try to just actually take the lectures and then read it, spend some time, and then with your doubts in mind, you will see that you have understood much more and you have benefited to a greater extent. So please do that. It cannot be possible by just actually my lecturing using the transparencies of these slides. It needs your reading, and it will be certainly more beneficial, and you will certainly see more meaning, meaning of the time that you have spent in these lectures. Thank you.
So I think, sir, there are no other questions. So I would like to conclude the session. Participants, when I first requested Professor Maiti to help me in taking some sessions in the proposed faculty development program on this topic, he was having some work at his hand, and then he said that he would take some time before he says okay to me. And then after some days, when I called him as per his instructions, I was very happy to share with you that he agreed to taking the sessions, and thereby it has become possible for all of us to listen to him on various topics, various very important mathematical topics related to fracture mechanics. As has been suggested by Professor Vaiti, I also personally feel that listening to the sessions like this just once will not be sufficient for full understanding. We'll have to keep searching and reading more and more in the subject. But to the extent of triggering the interest in the subject, I'm sure such training programs can be really useful. So I am also thankful to the participants for their interest in such a narrow area, specific area of solid mechanics like fracture mechanics. So, on my own behalf, on behalf of my institute, and on behalf of AICTE, also on behalf of my other coordinator, we as coordinators, I thank Professor Vaiti for sparing his valuable time in delivering number of sessions during this training program. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot. All the best to all the participants.
Thank you very much.
Involved. Thank you.